Okay, Brandy, the floor is yours. And Robin.
Welcome to another Trailblazers episode, if you will, on the AI show Biz. Uh, Today we are offering this moment to tune in to Nathan White. He is the CEO and co-founder of, excuse me if I don't say this correctly, is it Agis?
Ages, yeah.
Aegis, okay. Aegis. And today's talk is going to be around the restoration NFT green development machine, Colorado River Basin restoration. The key to relevant environmental climate change emergency response is green and blue infrastructure using the most abundant resources on our planet, thus allowing this revolutionary binational template for reengineering our world's most fragile resources by enhancing the waters of the water cycle itself. The restoration of the Sea of Cortez, Laguna, Salada, Salton Sea, and Colorado River Basin is a low cost backbone development with over 500,000 acres of dust mediation, habitat creation, renewable energy, and ecotourism destinations in Southern California and Northern Baja. There's a lot to be said about what Nathan is going to bring to the table today. Thank you so much for being here. And my apologies in advance for some distraction in the background. I appreciate you and honor
Yeah,
you
not
much.
a pleasure. I'm really excited to be here. It's a real honor to not only follow Tim Draper, but all the presenters that went before me and those that are coming after. I think we're going to try and tie a lot of that context together. So, yeah, my name is Nathan White, CEO and co founder of Ages Inc. We've been working on projects in and around Southern California for about 8 years, but we're really trying to project a global context. So I'll get started and share some of the work that we're doing right now. And you can see here, we call the project Trace Lagunas, or in English, the three C's. So our discussion today is going to be the Colorado River Basin Restoration, NFT Green Developments Machine. And I just wanted to bring this up real quick. It's on our seal, but Norvis Ordo Seclorum is New Order of the Ages. So, those are an idea that our founding fathers mentioned, and it was mentioned by Mr. Draper. We need to look farther than a 12-year span. We don't want to stick to, thinking about projects that are 4 or 5 years. We want to build projects for the ages. And that's why we founded our company, and that's why we named it as such. So today we're going to be talking about the water cycle at its very basic ideology is how our planet lives. We take water from the ocean, it evaporates and it falls in the mountains and then flows back down. So we want to enhance and create a sustainable water cycle to stave off the worst parts of the drought that's happening here in the Southwest. And if anybody wants to join our X Prize team, it's called the Seawater Solution by Ages Inc. And we're really talking about seawater as the mechanism for addressing climate change on a larger scale. And this is kind of our proof of concept. So Tres Lagunas, if nobody's familiar with the Salton Sea, it's California's largest lake, but it's been declining over the last few years. It's had lots of different issues from salinity to different eutrophication and algae buildup due to it being a contained water body. But Laguna Salada was actually a water body about the time that I was born in 1984, and it slowly started evaporating over time. So our proposed project is to build green infrastructure in Southern California, and that can enhance the North American monsoon. We can also protect the endangered vaquita that live in the northern Sea of Cortez to reduce the salinity. And again, we're just talking about green renewable energy projects, seawater farms for food and biofuel with different industrial partners. But most importantly, we want to create green jobs as infrastructure, and that's been emphasized at the federal level here in the United States, but around the world we need green infrastructure. As a generic principle, we have water that comes in and evaporates, but a lot of that gets stopped in San Diego. So we're hopefully going to encourage a system that brings it from the region in the Sea of Cortez and the Tres Lagunas area to enhance the North American monsoon and hopefully reduce the next mega drought, which we're kind of in the midst of, and hopefully a lot of fresh water for the 40 million people in Southern California. If we're not familiar, there's about 96.5% of the world is saltwater, and about 71% of the ocean covers the earth. So what I really wanted to talk about for NFTs today is there's a financial mechanism to take the most abundant resource on the earth and monetize it. The Salton Sea, as I mentioned, it has a very high salinity. We're going to create salinity balance to increase habitat in that area and fill it up with ocean water. This is kind of creating toxic dust for a lot of residents in El Centro and Coachella Valley, where I grew up, and also down in Mexico. But this really becomes a template for global restoration using ocean water. As we can see, the salinity balance in the Sea of Cortez is really high. So the Totuaba and the Vaquita are very highly endangered. So this process of flooding Laguna Salada can actually recirculate some of that salinity and balance out that region and create a more stable ecosystem there. And then flooding water back around, this project itself is self-sustaining. It doesn't use any energy because we have the highest tidal flows in the world to bring energy and water all the way into Laguna Salada, which is about 7 miles from the US-Mexico border, and then bring water all the way back around to the Sea of Cortez. A little bit of a status update. We're going to be submitting this project back to the California Natural Resources Agency for water import and dust mitigation. But the exciting thing about this is that it's kind of self-sufficient and investable, and it looks towards a 20, 30, and 40-year plan for the entire region. Really exciting that we're using these floating barges and dredges. We can create artificial islands and wetlands. And you can also create what we're proposing, which are salinity berms. Instead of a traditional berm system, we can use the existing sediment, and then you could build different ecosystems and islands in both Laguna Salada and the Salton Sea. So this is an overall flow diagram, and it's pretty exciting. There's not many projects on the scale of this, and we've been working with our partners in Mexicali to start to develop this and work with local and federal agencies to start to bring up the concept of flooding Laguna Salada. But more importantly, as we can see in this diagram, there's a lot of add-on components. So the total project is about $1 billion, which is pretty cheap compared to like the $30 to $70 billion of not doing anything with the Salton Sea. We propose to restore Laguna Salada and the Salton Sea, so it's triple the benefit, in addition to flooding and adding water into the Colorado River Basin with evaporation. But there's a lot of wind add-ons, solar add-ons, pump hydroelectric storage, and seawater farming that can enhance evaporation even further. So this is the idea. We're going to do a template here in Southern California and then do similar projects around the world, where we can flood inland seas and we can enhance evaporation to hopefully add to the Green New Wall in Africa and other places around the world, especially Australia that's kind of fighting wildfires just like Southern California. So I'm going to jump into the NFT portion of this discussion. My concept, and I'll go quickly through these, is NFTs as actual development projects. A lot of concepts around virtual projects has been discussed today, but what I'm really excited about is my background's in architecture and real estate development. We really want to see projects that can be visualized with digital platforms. They could be purchased with an NFT or a public-private partnership or traditional investments, and then they could be built. So the owners of those NFTs can actually inhabit, utilize, and experience real physical spaces. And I didn't mention earlier, but this project is really intended to benefit the local Cucapá tribe and the Torres Martinez tribe and the other tribal organizations that live in this region that are pretty impoverished. And this becomes another mechanism to help them restore their ancestral fishing grounds. This used to be Lake Cahuilla, but Laguna Salada was a primary fishing habitat for the local tribe that has a lot of trouble fishing in this area of the Sea of Cortez due to the protected vaquita and the protected habitat. So just quickly, this would be kind of an example of a floating barge, a mini barge, and it has a certain cost to build it and operate it. We could do a floating island Leviathan system, which is a great name for an enhanced eutrophication and nutrient removal system. And we could deploy one, or we could deploy many around the region. Algae harvesting drones would be pretty fun, and that kind of goes to the virtual space as well. It's kind of neat to be able to extract nutrients physically and then with the islands themselves. Education barges and different things where we can actually bring people to the regions and have them experience some of the science that's on a larger scale, but on a miniaturized platform for school children and other people to experience. And then visitor centers, again, science and visitor centers. Habitat creation, we can create wetlands with NFTs. And these are projects that are in and around the Salton Sea where we can build, operate, permit, and actually create new habitats. So that's really exciting. Industrial areas, as mentioned, maybe a $5 million industrial center could be there to deploy different economic resources in the region. This is a really fun project that we're collaborating on in a few different places, but it's multi-tech waste conversion. So taking plastic that's not being recycled and sent to China or India or other places around the world, and you can actually create energy, and you can create fuel sources and other raw materials. So deploying that and working with our other partners at Bring Back the Blue to develop some of these multi-tech conversion facilities. This goes to the real gist of NFTs, as I kind of see it, is we can actually use them to build renewable energy generation resources in this region. This Archimedes screw actually lifts water, but it could also be used to generate energy when you're using it downhill. We could deploy as many as we like. Solar and wind can also be deployed to create new energy. The New River, Alamo River, this can stretch on for 40 or 50 miles. There was a recent study about saving a lot of energy by capping our water conveyance systems in California. This is kind of a module for that. I mentioned before seawater farming, renewable energy partners, and renewable resources. They actually do seawater farmings to make food and biofuel. There's a way to invest with that company and us as a project manager in collaboration with them on both sides of the border. Mentioned before, building wetlands and actual islands could be a fun way to experience these different things. Berms in different regions, right? I'm kind of putting an estimated value on it, but this is kind of the difference between what was discussed, the virtual space and the actual physical space is really important when you can actually build projects and have them inhabitable for the people that are investing in them. Pumped hydroelectric storage facilities. This is a way to green our grid even further, both on the US and Mexico side. Wind and solar farms on the west shores. So there's all these add-on components, but the big gist of this, imagine a $1 billion NFT, right? This thing can be broken up into a whole bunch of different pieces, or it could be purchased as one big investment package, and you could actually see the results over time as we start to stave off a drought. Then we expand this template around the world. So I'm really excited just to talk about this, really excited just to share the kind of ideas behind it, and really share what these projects can mean on a larger scale for people around the world. Just kind of seeing the Sea of Cortez and that kind of region flow and be experienced. So yeah, this is kind of a quick animation that kind of shows how it would feel as you're flying over in your boat or your airplane or your drone, right? So that's kind of the idea behind this. I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank Molly and all the presenters, but I really wanted to share with people like Tim, and we had actually we were fortunate to have Dan on our binational summit a few weeks back, where we just brought all these different technology partners into the conversation about this. And he was fortunate to bring that gamification kind of context in the digital space to a region like this, where you can actually see when a tree needs water, where you can see when a windmill is shut down, and you can actually experience it, and it could add a lot of technology and feedback to the whole system. But more importantly, when we zoom back to the Sea of Cortez and to the Colorado River Basin, this project might have $1 trillion benefit or more on an annual basis with restoring and doing the carbon sink. So, like I mentioned, the X Prize, we're going to be submitting soon. So if anybody wants to join our team, we can collaborate there. These NFTs are kind of in the background. We haven't minted them yet, but we're open to collaborations with different entities and agencies that want to participate on these more physical related NFT developments.
Excellent. Oh, what a powerful presentation. Thank you so much. Nathan, we're going to take some questions from the audience. The first question is, are you connected to the lithium mining going on near to the Salton Sea, or is that completely separate? And that's a question by Catherine Fitzgerald.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's we haven't done the mining yet, but it's always becomes a question of that becomes a collaborative partner that we can work with. We could do some of that ourselves, or we can work with another agency to provide the opportunities to build that. Lithium extraction can happen in geothermal facilities. It can also happen in other areas where we extract it from seawater, but not specifically yet, because those operations are not going to be productive, just like the farming. If you can see the farming that happens in this region, if there's toxic sediment and dust in this region, all of those operations come to a standstill because it becomes a toxic environment to be in. So, our predominant concern is mitigating toxic dust and creating the infrastructure to restore the Colorado River Basin. But all those add-ons become very important as we move forward.
Could you give us a few examples on how the $1 billion NFT would be broken up?
No, that's a great example. So this project can be broken into 3 phases. If we think about them in a third, Laguna Salada, to flood this project, this is part of what we're going to be putting in our submission to the X Prize, but we also talk about it with private investors, is, we could flood Laguna Salada for about a $20 or $30 million investment, actually bring water in here. The problem becomes the salinity level starts increasing over time with evaporation and percolation. So, to fully create the circulation system, it's about a $330 million project to bring water all the way in, circulate it all the way back around. Same thing in the Salton Sea to build berms and the salt sink that we need to encapsulate some of the salty water. It would be about a $330 million investment here. And then crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, again, that's about a $300 million project to bring a pipeline down or to build a conveyance system. So you can break them down into those 3 chunks, and that's why we call it Tres Lagunas. 3 different financeable mechanisms, but you can also do it as one whole package. But yeah, about a 2-year permitting process to get water in here and to permit Laguna Salada. Another 2 years to build it, which is pretty incredible for the scale of this.
I love it. We have another question in regards to, by the way, Eugene says that these are cool ideas. And how will the infrastructure stand up increased with the increased hurricanes and storm surges?
Well, that's a great question. That's why we're building this project, is to manage those tidal flows. So in this region, due to the Coriolis effect, we have the highest tides in the world happening at the Sea of Cortez, which pushes all this water in. So if we have a do nothing approach, it would inundate the farms that are here in the southern Mexicali region. So that's why we're creating a berm system to redirect that water into Laguna Salada and back around. But the real beauty of this is we have a pumped floating barge that dredges the material. So if there's ever a rupture, a leak, something that needs to be repaired, we just redeploy our barges back out and repair it that way, which is, a few days to build back the sediment that created the berm in the first place.
Excellent. So I heard you mention gamification in a certain way. It wasn't fully, and I couldn't quite grab my head around it. Are you doing anything online in the gaming areas to have us be involved as an avatar or anything of this nature? Could this be the next, game that supplies the excellence behind the plant?
Well, I think that was mentioned on many different speaker levels from the very first one where we have a full VR. This isn't currently. That concept is just kind of in the process of being generated, because you can imagine you can fly over something with a aerial type of avatar, or get in a virtual plane and actually see the convergence of the digital project with the physical space. And that's just something that has to be developed. That just becomes an additional benefit when this actually becomes operational, is that you can see places and regions where those add-ons can apply. For example, the wind farms that could happen on the West Shores, you could actually fly over and see those virtual systems installed in the digital space and have that experience be something that's investable, right? Somebody can drag and drop a $3 million windmill and they actually see it get built, and, you know, drag and drop floating islands, or drag and drop industrial buildings, or mangrove forest, right? Where they actually drag the pieces and they put them in, and it's tied to Bitcoin. So all of that investment is flowed through, and that NFT or that Bitcoin blockchain is implemented, you know, within days, weeks, or months after that purchase or that transaction has taken place. And that's the real fun part, is that it could be an experience where you create habitat, but you're also creating something that's fun to do. You can imagine like Facebook or something where you buy an island for $100 and you could see a bird hatching on an island.
Oh, and this always somebody, Gunnar just said, Sim City in real life. That's what's happening, is what we've envisioned for so long. So is that something you are toying around with, a concept or idea, or are you speaking to partners? Because, you know, AI showbiz is all about collaboration. If you're not doing that.
Yeah, no, we're always open to partners. That's how we founded our company, is that we never wanted to be fixed to one technology or one system. We're kind of an open source project management team that's able to interject different technology, different partners at any scale that they want to be involved in. So no, we're not developing it now, but we are open to those collaborations as they evolve. And I kind of mentioned Dan was on our presentation, and I just was so fascinated at seeing, you know, a virtual tree, or then a physical tree, where it would give you a notification that it needs water, or it gives you a notification about how much carbon it's sequestering, right? And that's down to the very minute pinpoint. Once you do this on a whole regional scale, it is a game changer.
So if people want to get a hold of you and contact you, is there a best way? Is it straight?
Yeah, so agesinc.com is the best way, agesinc@gmail, or, you know, I can post that information in the chat here shortly. But yeah, I'm always open for a phone call. I make myself available, and I'm always excited to bring new people into the fold. You know, these conversations are for our federal government too. I mean, we need climate change restoration projects that have this much impact for this low of cost, that can be implemented quickly. And, you know, I think that's the intent of infrastructure, as we're talking about it, is projects that actually can do climate change. Green job infrastructure is kind of the backbone of this.
This is a powerful tool. I can see how the gamified piece would fund the project, and then the project itself gets born, and then there's an entire ecosystem of educational formats that then, you know, you leverage into our school system. And there's just so much to be said for what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you so much for your beautiful presentation and the work that you're doing in the world. And thank you for being a part of today's show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. With that being said, everyone, let's take a deep breath in as we are absorbing into this conversation what the potential is of the scalability with NFTs as we start to emerge in the new world and the marketplace. Right here, bring your awareness down to your toes. Gently rise up through the toes and all the way up through your legs on a deep inhale, breathing in. And exhaling, allowing your body to release. Part of this is all about mindfulness. It's about the journey from within.